Elias Vance was no stranger to solitude, but the silence of Blackwood Reach was different. Not the peaceful hush of nature, but a waiting quiet, heavy with unspoken things. He'd been hiking for days, deeper than intended, lured by a forgotten trail marked on a crumbling map. As twilight boiled into a bruised purple dusk, a peculiar mist, thick and cloying, rolled in, smelling faintly of damp earth and something else he couldn't place, alike old dust and forgotten hopes. It clung to the ancient trees, their limbs like skeletal fingers against the fading light. Through the swirling gray, he saw it. A village, nestled in a hollow that should not have been there. It wasn't on any map, modern or ancient. Houses stood huddled together, built of gray stone and dark timber, their roofs sagging like weary shoulders. No smoke rose from chimneys, no lights flickered in windows, yet it didn't feel abandoned. It felt occupied, watched. Curiosity, a dangerous companion in such places, drew him forward. The air inside the village limits was colder, the silence absolute. He walked the narrow, winding lanes. The cobblestones were worn smooth, the wood of the houses bleached and weathered. As he passed doorways, he caught glimpses of figures within, standing still, facing inwards. They did turn. They didn't acknowledge him, just stood in the unsettling stillness. He found a building that looked vaguely like an old public house or inn. The door creaked open onto an interior preserved in time, coated in a thick layer of undisturbed dust. A faint, sweet scent, like decaying flowers, hung in the air. Seeking shelter from the deepening chill outside, and perhaps answers, he ventured further in. Upstairs, in what might have been a guest room, he found it tucked away in a loose floorboard, a small, leather-bound journal. Its pages were brittle, the ink faded but still legible in the last vestiges of light filtering through the grimy window. The journal seemed to be the chronicle of the village, penned by multiple hands over centuries. Entries spoke of planting and harvest, births and deaths, but interspersed were cryptic passages about the reckoning, the quiet bargain, and the visitor. As he turned the fragile pages, his breath hitched. There, written in a shaky hand under the date corresponding to a long-past celestial alignment mentioned earlier in the book, was a list of names. Names of those given to the quiet. And the last name on that particular list made his blood run cold. Elias Vance. The very name he carried. A profound dread seized him. He wasn't just a visitor, he was expected. The silence outside the room seemed to press in, no longer just empty, but heady with anticipation. He peered out the window. The figures he'd seen standing indoors were now outside, in the lanes. They still did move, but their faces, visible now in the gloom, were gaunt, their eyes sunk in hollows that seemed to follow his every movement. The air grew thick, harder to breathe. The village wasn't the place that appeared. It was a place that was, but only revealed itself when it was time. Time for what? The journal's entries about the offering and maintaining the quiet now pulsed with terrifying meaning. They weren't sacrificing to something, they were sacrificing someone. And that someone had been Elias, 50 years ago, or 100, or 500 a time was a fluid, meaningless thing here. And now, here he was again, drawn back to the place that had claimed him before. A collective, rustling sound rose from the lanes below, a light dry leaves skittering, or rats across floorboards. The figures began to move, slowly at first, their joints making soft, cracking noises. They turned their heads in unison, their empty gazes fixed on him. There was no malice in their movements, only an awful, relentless purpose. They were coming to reclaim what was theirs. Terror, cold and absolute, propelled Elias from the room. He stumbled down the creaking stairs, the sweet, decaying scent now overpowering, sickening. He burst out of the inn into the spectral light. The figures in the lane shuffled closer, their numbers swelling from the doorways and shadows. He ran. He ran through the silent lanes, past the silent, watching houses, towards where the mist lay thickest, towards the edge of the hollow. But the edge never came. The lanes twisted and turned, leading him back on himself. The houses seemed to shift, the air grew colder, the mist a suffocating shroud. He could hear the soft, rhythmic shuffling behind him, growing closer. They didn't need to hurry. They knew he belonged to the quiet now. The silence of Blackwood Reach wasn't just waiting anymore. It was welcoming him home.